Oh, your father is standing up. Come quickly.
In my surprise, my voice broke into a strange squawk. No way. What the? Echoed my husband in equal shock. Seeing our astonishment, my father-in-law gently said, Well then, shall we get going? To our spa retreat. My name is Rachel. I'm a 55-year-old housewife. My husband, Bob, is an ordinary office worker of the same age. Our son, Michael, is also an office worker, married, and a father to a baby boy not even a year old. His wife is a very nice person and our family relationships are good. However, the discord with my husband's family was always a problem. This goes back to when we decided to get married. At the age of 27, we were colleagues in love. I had heard that he came from an ordinary family, but when it came time to get married, it turned out that his family was actually wealthy and all his family members had impressive backgrounds. His parents had been successful in running a trading company, and his younger brother, Kevin, who is 2 years younger than Bob, had graduated from a prestigious university and was actively running an IT company. By the way, Kevin had already been married and his wife was a successful career woman. During the meet and greet with his family, my mother-in-law landed the first punch, "You're the one? As expected, you seem to have no outstanding qualities. You must be happy to become the bride of a wealthy family like ours." Furthermore, the mother-in-law and Kevin's wife got along very well. I felt a bit uneasy, but I believed Bob when he said, "Don't worry. I've always been disliked by my mother, and I've had little contact with the family." And we got married as planned. Ever since we got married, my mother-in-law has been making snide remarks at me. When I gave birth to our first son through a difficult C-section, she said, "C-section is such an easy way to give birth." Kevin's wife gave birth naturally, and it was a breeze. High-achieving career women just operate on a different level. When our son entered elementary school, she said, "Kevin's kid goes to a famous private school." Bob remained calm, but one day he told me this story. "I've always been compared. No matter what I did, I was always just average, while Kevin was smart, good at sports, and could do anything. So, Mother always showed interest in him. Whenever she had the chance, she prioritized Kevin. The only refuge I had was our father. Dad treated Kevin and me equally. But it seemed like Mom didn't like that, and over time, I think their relationship started to deteriorate." Indeed, as Bob said, my father-in-law is a very gentle and calm person. Whenever my mother-in-law said something awful to me, he would casually send me supportive texts and even apologize on occasion. When our son started elementary school, it was our father-in-law who gifted him a wonderful backpack. And when Bob made a mistake at work and was ordered to relocate for a while, it was his father who provided us with emotional and financial support. My father-in-law retired from managing the trading company at the age of 75. The mother-in-law retired at the same time, and that brings us to the present. I have grown to feel an indescribable sense of gratitude towards my father-in-law. However, my father-in-law fell and hit his tailbone. It seems he slipped on the stairs at home. When we rushed to Bob's parents' house out of concern, we found the mother-in-law and Kevin's family there. The mother-in-law said, "You are so careless. You need to rest for a while." "So, I've been thinking about moving in together." Us, my husband asked, to which the mother-in-law replied, "Of course not. Who would want to live with plain folks like you who are content with mediocrity?" I meant Kevin and his wife. They're top-notch in everything, so I don't have to worry about my old age. And that's how the cohabitation with their parents and Kevin's family began. Our house and my husband's parents' home are just about a 10-minute drive away. As expected of a wealthy family's home, it's a magnificent house with even a small pond in the garden, looking like a mini park. My father-in-law, who loves gardening, had planted many colorful flowers in the yard. Not long after they started living together, I visited my husband's parents' house to check on the situation. When I went into my father-in-law's room, believe it or not, he was laid to rest in a dimly lit corner of the walk-in closet. But that's not all. The study that my father-in-law had been using before his injury was now being used nonchalantly by my husband's younger brother. I was so shocked by the situation that I complained to my mother-in-law. "Isn't the way you're treating him terrible?" My mother-in-law, with an indifferent look on her face, retorted, "Oh, since he won't be using it, Kevin is just making good use of it for his work from home." She said that nonchalantly. "But still, it's pitiful for him to be in such a dark place. When I got angry, my mother-in-law got even angrier. We're just using unused space. Don't you understand the concept of making good use of space? I couldn't respond to her anymore and went back to my father-in-law.
I'm sorry for causing you worry.
My father-in-law said apologetically.
No, it's nothing. Is there anything I can do to help?
Then, my father-in-law, looking lonely, said, if it's not too much trouble, could you water the flowers in the garden for me? Looking at the garden, I saw the once beautiful flowers wilting. Fortunately, I also loved gardening and readily agreed. From then on, I used the excuse of gardening to visit my husband's parents' house daily and also take care of my father-in-law. Although my mother-in-law and brother-in-law seemed annoyed, I couldn't be bothered with that when thinking about my father-in-law. After some time, my father-in-law had his birthday. My mother-in-law informed us that they would have a family party for my father-in-law's 80th birthday. My husband and I were also invited and we were supposed to have a fun birthday party. On the day of the party, when we arrived at the house, the party had already started and my mother-in-law and brother-in-law were chatting. But my father-in-law was nowhere to be found.
Where is he?
Then, my mother-in-law answered with a smile.
Huh? He's in his usual spot. It's too much trouble to move his bed, right? He told us to go ahead and have fun without him.
I was dumbfounded. And then I got angry.
But that doesn't mean you should leave your husband alone. This is supposed to be a celebration for him.
My mother-in-law, looking irritated, said, well then, why don't just the two of you go to him? I don't like being in such a dark place.
Understood.
As I said that, my husband mumbled, Mom, that's not right. And we both went to my father-in-law.
Oh, you've come.
My father-in-law greeted us with immense joy at our visit.
Happy birthday. We hope your injury heals quickly and you regain your strength soon.
We celebrated his birthday in the dimly lit room. He was delighted by the yellow umbrella we gifted him, hoping he would use it when he got better. He stared at it happily for a long time. Even after his birthday, I continued to help him with the garden flowers every day. However, he remained bedridden. Then, one day, something astonishing happened. As I arrived at my husband's parents' house early in the morning, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law, with their large suitcases, appeared in front of me.
Well, take good care of him, okay? What? What do you mean?
Surprised, I turned to my mother-in-law, who said, we're off to a week-long trip to Hawaii. It's obvious if you look. Really, you can be so slow.
I wasn't informed about any trip. I replied. There was no need to tell you. After all, you're here every day taking care of my husband. What? What about him? He'll be fine if you take care of him. We can't take him along. We're tired of caring for him every day. Don't we even get a break?
My mother-in-law started to get angry. That's right, chimed in the brother-in-law and his wife. I was flabbergasted, beyond anger.
All right then. Safe travels.
I said this with a thick layer of sarcasm and took the house key from her.
Can't wait for the beach, it's been a while.
Ignoring my glaring stare, my mother-in-law and the brother-in-law's family left. Once they were gone, I quickly finished gardening and went into my father-in-law's room. I'm really sorry, Rachel, his face looked downcast. No worries, just rest easy, I told him. I placed a small table next to his bed and laid out his favorite dishes. Then, I called my husband, and the three of us had dinner. Despite the circumstances, our lively dinner tasted great and was enjoyable. Suddenly, I noticed my father-in-law, who was sipping his soup, had teary eyes.
Is everything all right? Did something not taste good?
Worried, I asked him, to which he quietly replied.
No, it's not that. I'm just very grateful for you. You're really the best daughter-in-law one could hope for.
Even though my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's family would always have lively dinners downstairs, my father-in-law would spend his days alone upstairs. Just thinking about it made my heart ache. Since the next day was a day off, my husband and I decided to stay at their house for the night. We had a pleasant chat until my father-in-law fell asleep. The next morning, I was shocked when I saw the garden. My father-in-law was standing there, tending to the flowers.
What are you doing? Good morning, Rachel.
As if nothing had happened, he was gardening. I rushed to call my husband.
Bob, your dad, he's standing up. Come quick.
I exclaimed, my voice high-pitched with surprise.
What are you talking about? Dad's bedridden, remember?
My husband rushed to the porch, only to be equally surprised. Whoa, what? Seeing our stunned faces, my father-in-law calmly said,
Well, shall we go on a spa trip then? Huh?
Ignoring our surprise, my father-in-law remained composed and asked us to prepare for a one-night trip. In our state of shock, we did as told, went home, packed for a one-night trip, and returned. Sure enough, my father-in-law was still standing, looking very energetic.
Could you drive?
We headed to a spa-in. Once we settled down, we asked him, what on earth is happening? With a grin, my father-in-law confessed, I'm sorry for deceiving you. I overheard a secret conversation between my wife and Kevin shortly after we started living together. The conversation went something like this.
He's gonna be bedridden at this rate. It's really a bother, said my mother-in-law. Then let's put him in a good facility. He doesn't have much time left. Let's change the ownership of the land and house to us before he passes away. If we get him to write a will, it'll be perfect. As long as we get a considerable portion, that is. He's bedridden, I can convince him easily, said Kevin. That's a good idea. Once we decide on this, we should act quickly. When we return from the vacation in Hawaii that we're gonna take with his pension savings, let's put our plan into action, said my mother-in-law. Sounds good, agreed Kevin.
My father-in-law, who overheard this, knew not only of their plans for after his demise but also of their vacation to Hawaii. They are not my family anymore, he thought to himself. And he decided not to leave his land, house, or assets to his wife and Kevin. To fool them, he decided to pretend to be bedridden and maintained his leg strength by walking around the second floor when no one was around. And so, he had been thinking all along about who to let inherit the estate. My father-in-law said proudly,
I've been feigning bedridden all this time, waiting for the right opportunity. I want you all to inherit my estate.
My mother-in-law and brother-in-law, who had been enjoying a trip to Hawaii, returned home a week later. By that time, my father-in-law had already consulted with a lawyer he had hired in advance and had transferred the ownership of the land and house to my husband. Furthermore, he had finalized a will regarding the inheritance. Then, on the day of their return, my mother-in-law and others were surprised to see my father-in-law walking briskly around. What's happening? They exclaimed in astonishment. He told them, we need to talk about the future. Come to the living room now. He called all the family members into the living room.
Hey, why are you standing?
My mother-in-law asked, shocked.
I've been well for a while. I've been doing physical therapy secretly at night after you all have gone to bed. I've seen through all your plans. What plans?
My mother-in-law played dumb.
Weren't you trying to put me in a nursing home, make this land and house yours, and make sure you inherit all the estate?
His strong words made his mother-in-law and brother-in-law, Kevin, pale.
Dad, you must be mistaken. I've heard with my own ears the conversation you had with her in my room. There's no mistake. You must have enjoyed the Hawaii trip with the pension I had saved. It's easy to see if you look at the bank book.
He glared at them and said, first of all, about this land and house, I've decided to give them to my eldest son, Bob. He spread the deed on the table.
What?
His mother-in-law and Kevin were petrified.
There's more to it.
He continued the conversation regardless of their reactions.
I've decided to ask Bob and his wife to manage my estate. I've made a will too. Why? No offense, but Bob is just an average worker. We can manage money better. After all, we run a business.
Kevin finally interjected.
Managing money is indeed challenging. That's why I've introduced them to a competent lawyer and tax accountant. But Kevin is superior to Bob in every aspect.
He spoke sternly to his persistent mother-in-law.
Kevin, isn't your company on the verge of collapse? What? How do you know that? I have a friend who's well informed about business matters. Your company is seeking large loans, but you have no hope of repayment, do you? What?
At my father-in-law's accusation, my brother-in-law Kevin started to panic, looking like he might spit up his drink.
You know, the other day a reporter from the Financial Times came to interview me. He was talking about investments or something like that.
My husband responded, laying a business card from the well-known newspaper on the desk.
And that reporter wanted me to tell you, the truth has already been uncovered. What does that mean, Kevin?
As my father-in-law interrogated him, Kevin seemed to resign himself and confessed, I really did fail with my investment. I got carried away by a fellow entrepreneur's sweet talk. I rounded up investors and handed the money over to him, and then he disappeared. He ran off with the money. I was planning to sell the real estate I inherited from Dad to cover the debt. He admitted and hung his head in shame.
But Kevin, you promised it would definitely be profitable. What about my share? What? Mom, you invested too?
My husband threw up his hands in exasperation.
When I heard it was guaranteed to be profitable, I invested $300,000. I told my friends the same story, and they should have invested about $200,000 in total. What? So that's a total of $500,000?
I was shocked, following my husband's surprise. Kevin, you call yourself a businessman and yet you can't even spot a scam like that. I can't entrust my fortune to someone like you. Have some shame. And you, I knew about your $300,000 investment. When you went to Hawaii, I checked all the bank cards in our house. You will have to take responsibility and leave this house.
What? That's too much. This house is all I have. You and Kevin were the ones who took this precious house for granted. Dad, help me out here. Please help.
Ignoring their desperate pleas, my father-in-law left the room. Afterwards, my brother-in-law, Kevin, was left scrambling to repay the investment money, and he had to let go of his company. He tried to start another one, but with his reputation completely ruined, he failed. His high and mighty wife couldn't tolerate such a condition, and they soon divorced. The mother-in-law, whom she used to get along with them so well, turned hostile due to financial strains, leading to constant quarrels towards the end. My father-in-law and mother-in-law also ended up divorcing at a very old age. When it came to the division of assets during the divorce, the majority of the funds had to be used to repay the investments made to the mother-in-law's friends, leaving them with virtually nothing. Divorced and in a financial pinch, my mother-in-law is getting by with the little money she gets from my father-in-law every month, but all we hear are complaints. She lost her family, money, and is now living alone in loneliness. I bumped into her in the neighborhood the other day. She, still prideful as ever, claimed that living alone is comfortable, but her loneliness was clearly showing. As for me and my husband, we decided to live with my father-in-law. I spend my days enjoying gardening with my father-in-law in our spacious backyard. Furthermore, our son's family welcomed a new member, a girl, which made our family more lively. Above all, seeing my father-in-law looking so happy is the best. This is because his grandchildren and great-grandchildren come to visit every weekend. When it rains, my father-in-law would happily go for a walk, using the yellow umbrella I gave him. Seeing him like this, I feel content every day.